CNN just came out with a poll today. It has the overall picture is Biden at 24%, Warren at 18%, Bernie at 17%. Before I get into those numbers, I want to go into something else that I think's really important and actually a positive sign for Bernie. So when you go to the most important issues, for Democratic Party voters, the most important issue, healthcare, 59%. Climate change, 56%. Well, who has the boldest healthcare and climate change proposals? If healthcare and climate change are the most important topics to Democratic Party voters, who has the boldest plan? That would be one, Bernard Sanders, because Bernard Sanders has basically moved everybody over to Medicare for all. Obviously not Joe Biden, who's still, giving wet kisses to the private insurance companies. Obviously Kamala Harris for a hot minute before she, moonwalked away because she doesn't stand for anything. Elizabeth Warren, kind of, but sometimes she doesn't talk about Medicare for all. Sometimes she says, there's plenty of options. Bernie Sanders is the boldest on healthcare, and people like that. Bernie Sanders also has the most aggressive plan on climate change at $16 trillion, which in the town hall on CNN, Elizabeth Warren couldn't really defend why her plan, that is far less, is better than Bernie's plan. She had no real answer other than, no, his plan's not better. So I think those issues are very, very important as far as crossover to Bernie Sanders. So then let's look at the actual poll numbers. Okay, so we got Biden 24, Warren 18, Bernie 17. Honestly, CNN, MSNBC, they're all doing jumping jacks because it has Elizabeth Warren over Bernie. However, the margin of error is 3.5 points. Bernie and Warren are basically tied. That's the story on this poll. But when you go in the numbers, I think Bernie's stronger. Among men, Bernie's up by a point. Among women, she's up by 3 points over Bernie. Among whites, Bernie, she's up because her base is predominantly black. Warren's base is predominantly white. Among non-whites, this is where Elizabeth Warren is struggling. Bernie's at a strong 19%. Among African Americans, Bernie's beating her by 2%. Among Hispanics, which is very important, Bernie is in the lead of everybody. He's beating Biden by 6 points. He's beating Warren by 14 points among Hispanics. Why is that important? Well, let's look at the primary schedule, folks. The Nevada caucus is the third contest. Nevada has one of the biggest Latino populations in the country. Bernie lost the Nevada caucus to Hillary Clinton in 2016, but his outreach to Latinos has only grown since then. He is doing incredibly well among millennial Latinos and doing better among older Latinos. It's possible Bernie wins Iowa. It's possible he loses Iowa. And it's also possible that Bernie wins New Hampshire, but it's also possible that Bernie loses New Hampshire. But for argument's sake, if Bernie wins Iowa or New Hampshire, so one of the first two contests, and then he wins the third contest, which by the numbers, he's in the strongest position among Latino voters, which is decisive in Nevada. If Bernie Sanders wins 2 out of the first 3 primaries, not only will the establishment have a heart attack, not only will the bankers probably get into a room with the military generals, probably get into the room with the fossil fuel executives, probably get into the room with the pharmaceutical executives and the real estate developers and figure out a way, we got to get this guy out if he wins 2 out of 3. If Bernie Sanders wins 2 out of 3 of the first 2 out of 3 first states, Joe Biden does not have an electoral case to be made. Yeah, sure, people argue South Carolina, but if the last vice president who at the time presumably is the front runner before Iowa, if he loses 2 out of the 3 first states before South Carolina, that's going to depress his turnout and result in South Carolina. It's also going to, can you imagine the fundraising tsunami that would come in for Bernie Sanders all over this country? Also, I think if not only Biden would suffer, if Bernie won the first 2 out of the 3, that's momentum that you just can't manufacture. CNN and them could try and paint it that Warren still has momentum at that point, but you might have a lot of you might have a lot of Bernie supporters that kind of jump ship to Warren. If he wins that first 2 out of 3, you might have a lot of those former burners jumping back on the bandwagon. And frankly, I don't think they should have jumped off in the first place, but I'll welcome them back if it equals a victory. So, looking at this CNN poll, and by the way, it's not just this CNN poll. Other polls have Bernie Sanders doing incredibly well among Hispanic voters. And why wouldn't he be? Bernie Sanders is for the working class. Bernie Sanders is not talking about getting rid or putting up walls. Bernie Sanders is talking about expanding immigration, DACA, restoring DACA, and many other things. But he's also talking to the bread and table issues that Latinos care about. Latinos aren't like second-class citizens. They care about healthcare. They care about jobs just like you and I. So Bernie doing very well among Hispanics in this poll is very important. I also think the fact that Warren is doing so poorly among non-whites, and I don't really know how Warren does better among non-whites really, because it's kind of a similar problem that Bernie Sanders had in 2016. The African American community, I don't want to be a white person like white-splaining, they tend to gravitate, especially older African Americans, with who they're more familiar with. Familiarity breeds being comfortable, right? So they didn't know who Bernie Sanders was in 2016. Now they do. So that's why Bernie Sanders, next to Biden, is doing really good. Not really good, but better among African Americans. Elizabeth Warren, a lot of them don't know who she is, and frankly, they'd rather stick with Biden or Bernie. Another thing that I think is just a death sentence. I don't know how Kamala Harris has a presidential campaign if she's only getting 8% among black people. I mean, let's just call it what it is. She's a black woman running for president, and she's in 4th place here among black voters. I mean, I don't mean this in a derogatory way at all, so don't confuse what I'm going to say. I don't mean it in a derogatory way at all. But that's where your moneymaker is. I mean, you have, not that black people are just going to vote for you because you're black, but like they'll definitely be, naturally be a little bit more open to somebody that looks like them, has experienced things like them, just like they were to Barack Obama. So the fact that she's not doing so hot among black voters, I don't know what your case is. You're in single digits overall, and you're not doing well among voters that kind of would put you over the top. So that's what I think. Looking further into this, there's some other numbers that stand out. This is what I was getting at as far as Joe Biden. A lot of the voters and base of Joe Biden have not yet been introduced to Biden's terrible record for workers. So this is support among people making less than $50,000 a year. Biden, unbelievably, is at 27% in this poll. 27%. Bernie's at 18, Warren's at 16. I expect this is why Bernie has to go after Biden in this debate, because I would say probably the majority of that 27% have not a clue about Joe Biden's votes in the Senate, Joe Biden's record on trade, Joe Biden's record on deregulating banking, Joe Biden's record of taking money from union busters. When Bernie presents that, I think that is going to come down quite a bit. Then you look at over 50,000, no surprise. Biden doing very well, Warren does better, and Bernie in third. Non-college graduates, Warren, again, she's not getting the working class, which is people with just high school degrees. So she's Biden 27, Bernie at 19, 11% for Warren. Again, just like the category of under $50,000 a year, where I expect Biden's numbers to go down, and when those numbers go down for Biden, expect Bernie's to go up. Same thing for non-college graduates. A lot of these people with just high school degrees are in that same category of making less than $50,000. Biden's numbers will go down, Bernie's will go up if Bernie has a good performance against him. College graduates, no surprise, Elizabeth Warren does the best. Her base is college graduates, people with advanced degrees. Among white non-college degrees, again, anything without a college degree, Warren in third place. College degree, again, white, college educated, 29% for Warren. So, but you can't win the primary without having serious support among people with high school degrees. And by the way, it's not good for the general election. Everybody's making it seem like Elizabeth Warren can go head to head with Donald Trump. Donald Trump's base, how Donald Trump won, is people with high school degrees, working class people. If Elizabeth Warren does not connect with those people, she's going to beat Donald Trump. And yes, I see the poll numbers of Donald Trump. They're not good. But his poll numbers weren't good leading into the 2016 election. How's President Clinton working out for you? So, just talking facts here. Just talking facts. Bernie among independents others. Biden 22, Bernie 17. Again, a lot of those independents are the working class people and swing voters that I spoke about in the other categories. I see as Biden goes down, Bernie goes up. I think those independent votes go to Bernie because Bernie did incredibly well in the 2016 campaign among independents. That's why he won, if you recall, many of the open primary states where independents could vote. Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.